Would you take your seats, please? Oh, damn it. You've heard from two people, not digital employees, and I thank you for not revealing about our secret plans to release the $100 alpha chips next week. It's been an interesting collaboration over the past year with the freeware community. It's had some real desirable results. The first alpha bits ever on a Linux distribution appeared on the Yggdrasil distribution last 6 months ago anyway. And their newest one lists Blade for DEC Alpha prominently as the newest, bestest thing on their CD. At DECAS, Red Hat Software introduced their alpha version of Linux, and they're just in the process of releasing, that was the beta version, they're just in the process of releasing the final version. The last person who will be addressing you today is Dave Rusling. He's an engineer from Digital Semiconductor in Reading, England. He spent some time at a Prime computer, and then
that was a long time ago.
He's a 10-and-a-half-year veteran with his pen here at Digital, and I'll let him say the rest.
Can you hear me reasonably well? Yeah. You'd think Digital could afford 2 microphones, but you know we're very cost conscious these days. Unlike Linus, and since I thought I'd be following him and David, you'd all be rather tired and you wouldn't have any energy to ask questions. So I've asked them for you. So my entire presentation is a series of questions and answers. Now this is good because I thought up the questions, so I know the answers. So anyway, the first question is why? Why? And I'll try and answer that. Talk about the past, and then more questions, answers, and then the really important stuff, which is the future, because the past is done, the future is important. I'm actually going to skip some slides from my presentation because other people have kind of done stuff. Just this one that's interesting, and I think David and Linus have both borne this out. The stronghold of Linux are the academic institutions, the home enthusiasts, research and development, networking sites, and black boxes. That's kind of products where Linux happens to be in there, but you don't really know. You just buy a black box, turn it on, plug it in, and oh, you've got access to the network, to the web. That's where Linux is, that's its market, and that is a pretty good market for Alpha 2. Why did Linux get ported to the Alpha? Well, the Alpha is a very nice chip. It's OS neutral, it's high performance, it's 64 bits. And I think desktop Alpha offers the single for a single processor the highest performance you can get. I still believe, no, I'm not quite the only person with an EB164 running Linux, but there aren't many about, so I can probably claim to have the highest performance Linux in the universe. But once Linus has one, then no doubt it will be even faster, because my port of it wasn't exactly, it was a bit more robust than it needed to be. So no doubt he'll make it faster. So that's why, because Alpha is such a great chip, Linux is such a great operating system, that's the best thing we should do. We should put good things together. And I work for Digital. I want to sell more Alphas. It's a perfectly respectable thing to want. Digital pays for my mortgage, they pay for my children's education, they keep me in beer and cars and stuff, and they send me around the world to talk to other people, so I figure that I should try and earn the money. Just a little history. You get to meet people with strange names in this, it's great, Mad Dog. And Mad Dog one day will tell you individually why he's called Mad Dog, but about a year and 2 months ago, I heard about Linux. I'd never heard about it before. I was a virgin as far as Linux is concerned. And I heard about this guy called Jim Paradis, who was porting this freeware thing to Alpha. So I made an appointment to go and see him and turned up at his office, and I said, "Hello, Jim, I'm Dave, blah, blah, blah. What's this Linux thing and Alpha?" And he smiled shyly. The smile of a sort of an elfin creature that he is. And he reached behind him and pulled out this laptop, opened it up, powered it on. It was an Alpha laptop. And very early Linux sort of creaked into existence and being, but it was Linux. It was, at that time, 32 bits. But it was two amazing things in an afternoon. It was an Alpha laptop, and it was a free operating system running on it. So that's what got me hooked right from the start. Now, if you want to read the whole story, those of you who picked up the magazine, read page 38 onwards. There's an excellent article written by me which describes this in a bit more depth. Anyway, so there was me and Jim, and around that time, the other important person, I should say that I am a third of the official Linux on Alpha within digital team as such. It's a loose affiliation, a confederacy, if you will. Anyway, the third man, Mr. X, Jay Estabrook, who knows every video chip that was ever made and who made it and what number it was and what the clock ticks are and stuff like that I don't know. He's added enormously. Only recently he got the TGA stuff working for X. So that's really good news. Around about the middle of last year, as David mentioned, was when things really started to take off. 1.2 came out, it's got its multiple architecture, and the growth in the availability of systems and in the usefulness of Linux on an Alpha just went pow. And everything you're seeing now is the result of that last 6 months, that last 8 months. And if you read Jim's excellent articles in the Linux Journal for the last 3 months, you would know all that too. It's a guerrilla effort. I think I spelt guerrilla right there. Yeah. I don't mean the furry animals, although some of us do resemble furry animals. The really, really important person in all of this, the person that started the ball rolling, the person that is the philosophical driving force behind Linux on Alpha is, of course, Mad Dog. And Mad Dog's marketing has been invaluable, without his imagination, we wouldn't have got this far. Speaking of imagination, then our resourcing has been sort of imaginative too. We have done a lot of work. We have a lot of systems. Most of the time, we didn't buy any of those systems. They sort of arrive in my office, air freighted there. Some of them work, some of them don't. If they work, I port Linux to them. We're only small. We're only small. There's only 3 of us. There are 60,000 other people in digital not doing Linux, so we need help. Outside help is essential. We really need help. My wife says that about me all the time. It's a digital project, so we need some goals, but just sell chips is a good goal. Excuse me a moment. And the way to do that is to do some enabling stuff. And it's to support the people that are out there doing the stuff anyway. And that's what we've done. We've done the stuff where we can add value, we've done. TGA, the X driver, is a perfect example of that. And we've supported the Linux community as best we can with our imaginative resourcing. So these are the people we've sort of been talking to. The Linux community, whatever that is. That's, as you all know, is a bunch of people with very long hair and open-toed sandals. That's not true. Actually, all the young men I speak to in universities, I don't want you to get the wrong impression about me, I'm married with 2 children, but these young men in universities, they have a penchant for beer, curry, and Linux. And they all, like Linus, they have not long hair. In fact, it's the old guys like Jim at the back who's got long hair. I'm thinking of growing mine because it would just look so nice, and I'm losing it at the front. We've spoken with the people who sell the hardware. Digital sells everything through distributors and suppliers. And part of my role has been to persuade them that selling boards that can run Linux is not a painful exercise. We've spoken with the software distributors of Linux. And this is part of the other part. I know I work for Digital, in Hudson. I work for Digital Semiconductor. But we've spoken with the other groups, and we've had a fair amount of help in the other groups too. So we've tried to establish some working relationships with, I hate to say the word, but key individuals. Linus is a very obvious example. David is another. Their help has been invaluable. We have tried to have a small hardware sponsorship program, which we would dearly like to expand, to try and get some expertise in universities. We're trying to see websites up, and we're trying to get sort of Linux on Alpha expertise centers going one way or another. You can ask questions if you want. Here are some distributors. These are taken from David's website, and they're not all of them, but these are people who actually will sell you a board, an Alpha board, or system for that matter, that will run Linux. Yeah?
I noticed Tadpole is not on that list. And currently, their only notebook offering with an Alpha in it has VMS.
Yes.
Connecting up all those CI cables to the back is a real bear.
Yeah. The question was around Tadpole and their laptop, and the fact that it's only available with VMS on it. An excellent operating system, I must say, at this juncture. It paid my mortgage for about 7 years. I would dearly love to see Linux running on that. And if anybody has some Tadpoles, if they give one to either me or Jim or Jay or Linus, it would happen.
Carrying VMS PAL code instead of NP PAL code?
No, PAL code's not a problem, and I'll get on to that.
Okay.
PAL code we got. Anyway, this is just to give you the impression that there are lots of places out there selling stuff. Oh yeah, I've got GTech in France. I spoke to them a couple of weeks ago, and they're gung-ho. They want to sell systems. Boards. Obviously digital, we sell a few too. That's good. There's some software specialists and distributions we've spoken to and are in this room indeed. Lasermoon, there's Ian Nandra from Lasermoon. Red Hat, there's Eric Trone and Donny, whose surname I've sadly forgotten. We've also spoken with, all these names are familiar to Linux types, but these are the people who put out distributions. X386, they're the guys that do the X stuff. We have a close working relationship with them. Caldera also. Help Inside Digital. These are some of the groups, one way or another, who've helped. APS have helped us. They gave me an Excel, so I ported Linux to it. TOEM, Digital Semiconductor, well, their help is that they keep paying me and don't really ask me to do too much work other than Linux. The reason I'm wearing an ARM shirt here is because I have worked on the strong arm a bit. But then I did Linux again after that. Networks and comms have helped. Dave Davies wrote the Tulip driver. Thank you, Dave. I'd just like to point out that all the speakers today are Europeans, of which makes me very proud. And Dave, who wrote he's also European, so there's a big European effort here. And that's what I like about it, because I'm a European, I live in Europe, and that's great. It's a very good thing. Despite my government not necessarily liking Europe, I do. So there we go. So what have we've been at? I've given you the impression that there's 3 people worked more or less full-time for 14 months. What have we done with our time? Well, we ported Linux to various places. We did some basic kernel development, like the PCI BIOS code and video code, TGA code and stuff. Milo, which I did, which I'll get on to. I can talk endlessly about Milo, but I'm not going to, I promise. This is the really important stuff, evangelizing, which is what I'm doing now. I'm trying to convert you all. I've got a CD in my bag, and if there are any alphas that we support that you want to put it on, then I will come and put it on them for you. Won't I, Franklin? Thanks. We've tried to get some publicity. We're trying to get some visibility. So we've written articles for the Linux Journal, and you have one now. We've done technical talks internally and externally. I'm due to speak with Cambridge University at the beginning of March, Oxford University at the end of March, Edinburgh in April, and then Karlsruhe, I think, might be June. So I'm doing a lot of speaking to young men in universities. Shows, this is Mad Dog Marketing. This is where we've been, and others. And we've had a pretty good reception there. It's been a good thing to do. So we've tried to give us visibility to this, as much visibility as we can. Are there any conflicts of interest here? Am I the 5th column? Is Jesse Lipcombe going to phone me up and sack me? I as far as I can see, there is no conflict. I'm paid for by Digital Semiconductor. And if I can say, look, extra chips got sold, then I believe I'm doing my job. Horses for courses is an English saying, and you possibly have it here, but it's probably Cadillacs for roads or something. Different operating systems are good at different stuff. You pay for them for different reasons. These slides were done on PowerPoint because really I don't like using LaTeX for slides, although I do use SGML to write web pages. So, you know, horses for courses. My home box runs Windows because my kids use educational CDs on it and not so educational CDs on it. I use Linux because I can dial into work and use PPP, and I can add my node to the network, and Digital pays my web access for free, which is good. My view, for what it's worth, is that Linux is an enabler of sales to other operating systems. I have, I won't give names, but there's at least two sales, one of which, where Digital Unix was the other operating system they wanted to run on the same platform. Another one where NT was the other operating system they wanted to run on the other platform. In neither case would they have bought the systems, or, well, they're actually trying to buy the systems, unless both were available for that platform. I don't believe I'm undermining massive sales of anything else. In some cases, Linux is the only solution. That's what people want, so I don't see why we shouldn't help them have it. This is my slide for distributors. Is selling Linux-ready systems a lot more work? No, it's not. Because the one thing that's really, really impressed me about the Linux community is that it's very, very technically able. Very, very, very technically able. My 16-year-old neighbor's son he babysits for me, and I let him play with my PC. And for a while he played with DOS games and stuff. And then he saw my book on C++ programming, and I said, well, are you interested? Yeah, I'd like to learn C++. So I booted Linux, gave him an account, and now when I'm away at a pub with my wife or out for a meal or with friends or whatever, he's at home writing C++ on my Linux box. And he's now running Linux at his father's house. So it's sort of spreading like a disease through the street. So it's a very technically capable community. At 16, he knows a hell of a lot about Unix and how to manage it and what to do. So long as Windows NT firmware runs, the board works. So that's a good clue. If the blue screen comes up, the board's working. If you can see the SCSI, the board's working. If that doesn't work, take the board back to your distributor and get your money back or get it replaced. If it comes up to NT and then does Linux not run properly, that's the person who sold you the CD distribution's problem, or it's the next problem to solve. It's not the guy who sold the board. The guy who sold the board's responsibility stops when the blue screen works. That's my view. And that's theirs because they're, with just a little pushing, distributors are willing to sell that way. I sort of mentioned support channels, CD distributions like Red Hat and LaserMoon and others. A lot of them have 0800 numbers you pay for support. The net's a pretty good place for support. There are companies that do support stuff. I know of a couple of contractors who support Linux, who run websites for people and do stuff like that. The support's there. It's not a problem. So, what systems? And by that, when I say systems, I mean alpha systems. What alpha systems can run Linux? Well, Jensen, but that's historical. It was the first one. No Name, we helped QAM with that. Not the Multier. It's called the Universal Desktop Box. I cannot say that, but the XL266 and all Mustang have anti-derivatives. The evaluation boards and their clones, those are the ones down there. And future boards, the PC164 or whatever it will be called, will support it, and that depends only on the time frame in which I get one, or Jay gets one, or Jim gets one. So just say I've convinced you, just to keep me happy. The website that David had up earlier is the best place to go for centralized information. Go buy a board, give Digital some money, and then buy a distribution or grab it from the net. And above all, use Milo to boot Linux, and not any tasteless imitations that may be around. So now you're all shouting, what the hell is Milo? Can I say hell in America? I'm a European. I'm not subject to your rules and regulations. I can be a sexist too. It's the Alpha Linux mini loader. And it's a freeware loader. This is an example of enabling software. It contains stuff you need, like PAL code from the Alpha evaluation boards. And at this point, I would very much like to thank Eric and Eileen, who are sat over there in the back. They're the reason that Linux runs so well on a lot of systems. They wrote that PAL code, and Jeff Wiedemeyer there too. So I think that's really worthwhile. So to get Linux running on the Avanti, I had to change 2 lines in an include file that moved around where the IRQs go. That's how good that stuff is. There's, in the mini loader, there's also the kernel services like interrupt handling and PCI comes directly from Linux. There's real Linux device drivers, as is unaltered binaries run in there. So in theory, any Linux device driver that works happily on an Alpha can be put in Milo and can be used to boot from. There's bits of pseudo kernel because I don't want the whole kernel, because then it wouldn't be the mini loader, it would kind of be the maxi loader, and that doesn't make sense. And sometimes you can't disengage bits of the kernel from other bits of the kernel. So I'm trying to keep that part to a minimum. Video drivers, BIOS emulation, TGA. Right now, the BIOS emulation is free BIOS emulation done by David, which works pretty well in a lot of cases, but once Franklin's rebuilt our BIOS emulation, then I will include that. Keyboard driver and NVRAM support, obviously. Milo can be loaded from Windows NT Arc. Thank you very much, Jeff. Flash or a boot block floppy. It supports EX2 and the ISO 9660 file systems. I'd just like to say it doesn't do boot. It doesn't require especially surprisingly to manage your flash and put images in and stuff like that. We are not alone. These are our oppositions. P6 frightens me. P7 terrifies me. MIPS I don't care about too much. PowerPC I don't care about. Spark, maybe. I think of all of these that Linux and Alpha is the most sexy of the propositions. If we can put things together in the right way, it can be a real success. But we are not alone. There is opposition. People like Intel do put money into this. They don't just ignore it. They have offered key players in the Linux community large amounts of money to relocate to exotic destinations and work on Linux for them, especially SMP. The main SMP man is a guy called Alan Cox in Cardiff, and he loves Wales so much he doesn't want to leave. Thank you very much, so that's good. And if I could get him a multiprocessor Alpha, I would. The future. Linux is big and getting bigger. I don't have a logarithmic scale, but my instincts tell me that it's getting big and it's good. Alpha can share in that growing market. That market, that academic community is very receptive to Alpha. They like Alpha. It's not a hard sell. Incremental sales can come from very little incremental effort because the market has the same kind of selling and support characteristics as Windows NT, by which I mean it's if you can get the stuff in position to sell boards that will run Windows NT, it's the same deal for them to run Linux. It's not any harder. I see our role as a catalyst. And I think that's a role we can carry on contributing to, and we should very much so. I don't see that role growing into like a Linux division with a big plant up at LKG or anything. So this is the sort of thing we should keep doing. We should keep making faster and faster and faster chips. We should act as a technical conduit. We should let these technical people do what they're best at, and the only blockage to that is not telling them the stuff they need to know to do what they do best. Keep writing enabling software. This part's in because I want to keep doing this, so I think I can keep on writing enabling software for quite a long time now. I have around 24 years before I have to retire, so I'm quite happy to keep writing software. Hardware sponsorship of key individuals, I think we should do that because it's a small outlay for a very, very, very big return. And within digital, I think we should form this loose confederation. I like the word confederation. This loose confederation, which I call the Zealots program, which means that people get really fired up about this and then they're willing to spend some of their time in it. And if their management's willing to let them do that, then good things happen. And the 4 of us, the 5 of us who've done stuff within digital have done a lot. We have generated a lot of interest, a large noise, bright flashes, a lot. We couldn't do it without anybody else, but I think we deserve a pat on our own backs if that's not metaphysically impossible. We should keep doing this. Are there any questions? Did anybody understand my diatribe? Yeah?
The internal conversations with the service people, digital service?
Yeah, I've had, as I said, there's a lot of groups who've helped us, who are very interested in this. They see this as a way of, gaining extra footholds. Some of the service organizations are kind of a little bit iffy. Mad Dog?
I'd like to answer that. The multi-vendor customer services.
Why don't you take the microphone?
I'll give it back. We've talked with the multi-vendor customer services group about providing services support for Linux. And they have traditionally backed away from providing service support of any type for any type of free software. We've tried to get them to provide services for, helping people get started and things like that. And number 1, they say we see no market. And number 2, they say it's very difficult. And rather than do that, they back away from it, very frankly. I would like to approach them again sometime, and perhaps doing what we have done with other operating system companies, such as Sun, where we actually provide first line of telephone support 24/7 around the world, and then we do second line service support with a contract with companies that actually produce the distributions, such as Laser Moon or Red Hat. And I think they may be receptive to that.
Are there any more questions?
Yeah, Dave, for you or for Amanda, how receptive has the management been to lowering the price of alpha chips? You driving that, or unloading excess Malteas?
Universal desktop boxes.
Universal desktop boxes. I see the biggest hurdle for Linux on Alpha succeeding being our pricing. Linus's remarks are entirely accurate. The second barrier is our inability sometimes to sell things efficiently to people. When they come asking and trying to give us money, we should be quite efficient at taking it. My children are, so I don't see why digital can't be. Any more? I guess in driving that home, these boards have to compete in the Windows NT market. The competition there is exactly the same. It's the same boxes competing in the same price structures. Nobody is prepared to pay more than X times the price of a Pentium for an Alpha that performs X or maybe X minus something more powerfully. So it's the same pricing hurdle you have to get over. It's no different.
Jim Paradise, when we started this project, put together a list of prices for processors. And what's quite interesting is that if you take a no-name board at its current list price and you populate it with PC peripherals and PC memory, you can actually produce a minimal alpha processor system running at 166 for about the same price as your MS-DOS Windows systems that are selling today in the range of 100 megahertz or whatever. The problem is that people are used to buying Intel boxes in the large volume market. They're used to buying the applications that run on Windows are many, And in order for us to sell these systems, we have to give them better price performance in those same types of boxes, okay? For example, you could put together a 233 megahertz alpha system with 16 megabytes of main memory, 1 gigabyte of disk space, and a very nice video card for about $3,200. And you could buy a very nice Pentium 133 system for about the same amount of money. And in order to penetrate that market, we need to give them a definite price performance advantage, not just a marginal one.
Any more questions? Yeah? Question from Jim at the back.
If I may submit a follow-up opinion to what Matt said in the digital semiconductor space, I think we need to do more effective pricing on our non-LCA CPUs as well. Because, quite frankly, when you start to run benchmarks, especially on a 133 megahertz LCA system, you find it's about comparable, maybe a little slower than your Pentium box. So, it's well known that the LCA is not a performance leader in the alpha space, and that once you make the transition to an ED4 or an ED45 or ED5-based system of the same clock speed, you get a tremendous performance improvement. So we need to start pricing some of those chips in the same, in the same ballpark as what we're currently pricing the LCAs, so we can penetrate the marketplace with high performance systems.
Dave, can you summarize? Yeah, sorry, just to, it's almost insulting to summarize Jim in a sentence, but Jim is saying that we should have the same aggressive pricing structures for our 21064 based systems as we do for our 21066 based systems, because the difference in those chips is enormous, and the difference in those systems in performance is enormous. My main development system, which is called linux.reo.dec.com, I noticed no one else in digital had a node named Linux, so I took it. That is an Alpha PC64 with 32 megs of memory in it, and a PCI S3 video card. That outperforms a no-name by a huge margin, more than just the price difference, more than the price difference would suggest. And I think that we're making strides towards making that system a reasonable price for what it is. But as Linus points out, we should follow up with the EV5 systems at a reasonable price also. Yeah?
Or I should say, we preaching to the converter here?
I don't know. Am I preaching to the converters?
Well, the reason why I'm saying that is you've got to convince management here. Maybe they're here, and so far I haven't seen many, if any. And what is being done there? I mean, like Mad Dog seems to be a little bit of the flag holder, if you will, and sort of running out front. How are we going, or what work is being done to try to hit broader dissection of our upper management?
Right. You've been trained as evangelists here.
Yeah, the question is what is being done to convince management that it's worthwhile investing in this, and it's worthwhile, and what is being done to convince management to take some of these ideas on board? Yeah,
We're not changing price.
we cajole, we evangelize, we are talking with people who do set prices. The fact that we're here is part of that. We're here now because we have something to offer. If we'd have come and said all this 6 months ago, 8 months ago, we'd have nothing in our hands and we'd just be potential. Now we have the engineering mostly done for a key section of products. Now we are able to go to management and really say, yes, we can make incremental revenue out of this. Yes, very much so. And any management is free to come to me too. I am due to speak with the board of managers of Europe next month sometime to give a pitch about Linux and its potential. TOAM are extremely interested in this. Any more questions? Well, thank you very much, therefore, for your forbearance, and go forth and install Linux on as many systems as you can. Thank you.